Hello everyone, how are you guys doing? I hope you guys are doing well. Thank you very much for stopping by. If you've not subscribed to my channel, please kindly do so. It will really mean a lot to me, for that is the encouragement I get for putting all these lovely interesting videos. Alright, in this tutorial, I'm going to teach you guys how to sew this beautiful origami bubble top. In our last tutorial, we learned how to draft it. Okay, so if you've not watched it, you kindly go and watch it so that you can join us in this tutorial. Okay, so the two materials I'm using is my doll face and my Ankara print. Okay, and for me to be able to combine these two materials, I have to slit this my pattern into two, and you can see the smallest dot here. That is where we are going to slit. Okay, you can see this squeeze line. That squeeze line I marked out, that is where we are going to slit, okay, in order to be able to combine these two lovely colors, so that by the time we slit it, one side we have the Ankara print and the other side we have the doll face. So you can see where I'm slitting it down. Okay, so that doll face will be for the other side and my Ankara print will be for the other side. Okay, so I'm going to proceed to cut this out. Okay, so if you are cutting this out, make sure that your pattern is on the right side of your fabric and make sure that it's facing each other this way. That way you don't run the mistake. Okay, you don't run the risk of making a mistake. So just as I placed it, place yours like this. Okay, so make sure your pattern is on top of the right side of your fabric and make sure they are facing each other like this. Okay, so I'm going to proceed to cut this out like you are seeing. So you can see how I am cutting it. I'm cutting exactly what I have on my pattern. Okay, so watch carefully what I'm doing. It's very simple. You can practice this as much as you can. So you can see that place where I divided the pattern into two. I'm going to add 1/2 inch joining allowance there. Okay, for my patterns I already added seam allowances before drafting it, so the only place I need to add allowance is that place I slit so that I can join it back. So you don't need to add any other allowance. Okay, you don't also need to add allowance those places we created our dart. Okay, and for the side seam and the shoulder armhole, I've already done so before drafting the pattern. Okay, so I'm cutting exactly what I have on my pattern like that, following each lines, following each corners. Just do your own same way. Okay, so you can see that place, that small that I slit in order to have these colors. I'm adding 1/2 inch in order to join it back. Okay, so don't forget to add your own 1/2 inch seam allowance. That is for joining it back. Okay, if you are using one color for your own, you don't need to slit it. Okay, now I'm done cutting it out. You can see how it looks. So what I'm going to do, you can see how I'm going to join it back. Okay, so you can see I have 9 dots that I created. You can see it's visible. So where you have a complete dot from top to bottom, you have to notch that place. Okay, in another sense, where you are folding over, we have to notch it. Okay, you can see where I have a complete dart leg. I'm going to notch it because that is where I'm going to fold over when it's time to fold over, just like it is on my pattern. Those places I have complete dart leg, I'm going to notch it. Okay, I'm going to notch it on my fabric so that I won't be confused when I remove the pattern. Okay, so those places I'm notching represent the place I'm going to fold over when I'm sewing it. Okay, just keep watching what I'm doing and keep repeating what I'm doing so you will get it. So I'm simply notching those places I have a complete dart leg from top to bottom. Okay, so and it also represents those places I'm folding over. Okay, I'll do the same thing to the other side. Okay, I will notch it. So the place I'm notching is the place I'm going to fold over, guys. I want you guys to understand this because it's very simple. Okay, I'm simply notching those places I'm going to fold over. So I'm notching it on my fabric so that by the time I remove my pattern, I won't be confused. So those places I'm notching represent the place I'm going to fold over. Okay, so you can see the places we have a long dart from top to bottom. Just notch that place. In another sense, it represents those places we are going to fold over. Okay, so I'm notching it. So after notching it, okay, you can see the places I notched. That's what I'm showing you guys. So after notching it, you see this slit that is on my pattern. Those slits are the places we are folding over that place we notched. I hope you guys understand this. So this slit I'm showing you guys, I'm going to transfer this slit on my pattern. This slit that is on my pattern, I'm transferring it to my fabric. Okay, you can see all these slits. I'm going to transfer it to my fabric because it will represent where I'm going to fold over those places I notched. Okay, so those slits on my pattern, like I'm showing you guys, I'm transferring it on my fabric. Okay, I'm transferring those slits on my pattern on my fabric. Okay, I'm doing it on the other side too. See this slit on my pattern, I'm going to transfer it on my fabric too. Okay, so you can see the next slit, I will also transfer it on my fabric so that by the time I remove this pattern, I won't be confused on where to fold over and all that. Okay, so after transferring this slit, you can see I've transferred it. After doing that, I'm going to remove my pattern. Okay, you can see the joining allowance I made. By the time I join it, my pattern will get back to how it is. Okay, so I'm going to place it right side facing each other like you see. I will pin it up. Okay, so once I pin it up, it will go back to how it is. Okay, so the reason why I slit it is because I want to use two colors. If you are using one color, you don't need to slit it. So you can see once I pin it up, it will go back to how it is. So I'm removing my pattern now. So as I've placed those notches and slits, I won't be confused again as to where to fold over my fabric and all that. So once I remove my pattern, I will tape it back with my paper tape so that it can go back to how it is. Okay. So I'm taping it down so that it can go back to how it is. Okay, and I'm redrawing my crease line. Okay, so you can see that I've placed my notches and my slits. Okay, you can see this slit represent the slits of my pattern, and the notch represents the place I'm going to fold. Okay, that is actually what I'm showing you guys right now. So once I've placed these notches, it will be very easy for me. Okay, I'm going to go to my sewing machine and I will join it together. I will come back to show you guys. So I've joined it together, and this is what we have, our pattern and our fabric. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is to fold. So that is the first that we are folding. Okay, so like I fold it, I will go to my fabric and I will fold it over. You can see where I notched and where I slit. Okay, where I notched is folding over to where I slit. Okay, so placing those notches and those slits makes it easier to know where you are folding to. Okay, so you are folding over to where you slit, and I've done that. I will go to my sewing machine and I will sew it like that. Okay, so arrange it very well. You fold over to where you slit and you go and sew it down. So I've sewn it down. That is the first that I've sewn it down. So the second one, as I'm folding it on my pattern, I will grab my fabric and I will do so. I'm grabbing the place I notched, you can see it, and I'm folding it over to where I slit. So you can see how simple it makes it. Okay, had it been that I have not placed this notch and slit, it will be confusing. So I'm going to sew it down like that. Okay, I'll pin it down and I'll go to my sewing machine and sew it down like you are saying. So guys, I've sewn it down, the second dart, and we are going to proceed to the third dart. You can see how I'm folding it over on my pattern. I will do the same thing on my fabric. I will simply grab where I notched and fold it over to where I slit. So you are seeing the importance of placing those notch and stitch, guys. Slit. So I'm going to go to my sewing machine and I will sew it down. So I've sewn it down. So the next one is the fourth one. I'm folding it over like that, and I'll grab my fabric and so guys, you can see I've sewn it down, and the next one I'm folding over is the fourth one. Okay, so you can see how I did it. I'm going to go to my sewing machine and I will sew it down. So I've sewn it down, guys. So the next one I'm folding over is the fifth one. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing on my fabric. Simply grab where I notched and I'll fold it over to where I slit. It's as simple as that, guys. Okay, you grab where you notched, you fold it over to where you slit. Okay, so that's the essence of doing those notches and slits. Okay, so I'll pin it down and I'll go to my sewing machine and I'll sew it down. So guys, I've sewn it down. So I'm folding over the next dart on my pattern. Okay, I'll go to my fabric and do the same thing. Simply grab where I notched and I'll fold it over to where I stitched. Okay, so I will pin it down and I will go and sew it down like that. So I've sewn it down, guys. So I'm folding over the next dart. Okay, the seventh dart. So I've done it on my pattern and I will proceed to my fabric, grab the place I notched and I'll fold it over to where I slit. Okay, it continues like that. Like, this is very simple, guys. You grab where you notched, you fold it over to where you slit. Okay, then you stitch it down like what I'm showing you. So I've stitched it down. Guys. So I'm folding over the next dart, the eighth dart. Okay, So I'm folding it over on my pattern. I'll do the same thing on my fabric. Okay, you simply grab where you notched and fold it over to where you stitch. Okay, where you slit, sorry. And I'll proceed to sew it down like that. Okay, I'll pin it down and I'll go and sew it down. So I've sewn it down. The last but not the least, that guys, I'm folding it over on my pattern. Then I'll also grab my fabric and fold it down. This is actually sweet, guys. It's very sweet and lovely. So I'm folding it over like that. I will pin it down. Okay, I'll pin it down and I'll go to my sewing machine and I will sew it down. Okay, so I've sewn it down and this is how beautiful it looks, guys. Like I'm very excited sewing this, and I'm sure you guys will also be excited. So you can see when I flip it back, you will notice there are some openings. Okay, you can notice there are some openings like I'm showing you guys. All you have to do, don't panic, just go to your sewing machine and stitch it down like I'm showing you guys. Okay, just locate that opening and address the opening. Locate the opening and stitch it down. It's very, very simple. As you are doing it, you even have a clear understanding on how to do this. Okay, and I believe I also simplified this stitching. Okay, so this is how it looks after stitching it down, guys. I've stitched it down and everywhere is closed and I have a clean, beautiful pattern and the result. So we are almost coming to the end of this tutorial, guys. If you have any question, don't hesitate to drop it out on the comment section. I will attend to that. Guys, please subscribe to my channel if you've not done so.